so much, ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate the fact that you made it back a lot earlier than what we had anticipated, but of course appreciative that we're trying to catch up on time. So as many of you do make your way in, we do kindly request that you settle down and prepare for our next panel discussion. One brief announcement before we commence with the session that will take place here in the Dome in the main plenary. I must just remind you that there is a parallel session that will commence at the Roy Gallery, which is the building right across the Dome. That particular conversation will focus on the renewable energy mix in Namibia. That conversation focuses on the renewable energy mix within Namibia, so if you'd like to participate in it, it is happening within the building directly across from us here at the Dome. Now, I've been told that NJ is going to be my backup to make sure that everybody settles down, because unlike me, he knows everyone by name, tells you to sit down in your local language, which then gets us all actively paying attention. But as we look to continue, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I do want to remind you that this particular session is one that will be a panel discussion running for the next 40 minutes. A panel discussion running for 40 minutes. Following that, there will also be a follow-up presentation. But this particular panel discussion Thank you. This particular panel discussion will focus on promoting Namibian content in terms of maximizing the full value chain within the energy structure. It is a panel discussion which seeks to gather expertise from many countries across the continent, those who have experience from the local Namibian environment, and of course making sure that there's adequate skills transfer, exchange of knowledge and information and insight that we can use to ensure that we fully capitalize on the opportunities available within the energy value chain. It is a conversation that is brought to you by Sonals, who are our sponsor and partner for bringing this conversation to you. The moderator of this conversation is Mwangengwa Ndaposhali Shapwanale, who joins us as the representative from Recon Africa, Namibia. She'll be joined by Maggie Shino, of course, the Petroleum Commissioner, joined by Nilian Mulemi, who joins us from the Petroleum Training and Education Fund. Annabella Marco will join us from Sonals. Sembi Wabote, who joins us from the Nigerian Content Development and Monitoring Board. Antoine Burrell, who joins us from Halliburton. And Ileana Ferber, who joins us representing the South African National Petroleum Company. All of them will make their way onto the stage, and of course, we will be leading conversation by Mwangengwa. Please pay attention to this video, and as the panelists make their way up and sit down, please do warmly welcome them with a round of applause following the video.
Bem-vindo a Sonils. Somos pioneiros no setor logístico de serviços integrados em Angola. Mais do que apenas uma base logística para a indústria petrolífera, a Sonils é um centro de inovação movida por um trabalho que visa a eficiência e sustentabilidade. Estamos a construir um futuro, sendo a preservação e a redução do impacto ambiental o foco de tudo o que fazemos.
Thank you very much. I hope everybody enjoyed the lunch break and that it was long enough. Now, as we reimagine a resource-rich Namibia, turning possibilities into prosperity, at the center of this conversation is, of course, how do we maximize the value chain? This is that we do it intentionally and, of course, impactfully. And at the center of this conversation in this assignment is local content. And to make it more personal to Namibia, it is Namibian content. And that's what this conversation is going to center around. And I'd like you to please give a round of applause to my panelists who will help me unpack this topic today. All protocols observed. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Wanyengwanda Pewoshali Shapwanale, Director of Communication Stakeholder Relations for Recon Africa, and I'll be your moderator for the day. I want to start this conversation immediately with our Petroleum Commissioner, Megi, and I'd want to ask you, what is the status of the Namibia National Upstream Petroleum Local Content Policy, which is currently in its draft form?
Thank you very much, Dapewa, and thank you everybody for coming back for this session. I think it's important for us to know, and as have just been stated by the Minister, that the Namibian upstream local content policy is taking a lot of shaping. And I think for that we have to acknowledge that it has taken a little bit of time for us to get it here. But we are almost in the tail end of what needs to be done. And the reason why it has taken time is because for something as important as critical to growing the economy, something that is also new to a sector or to a country like Namibia, it needs a lot of input and a lot of consideration. And with that input and that consideration, we are taking our time, that we don't necessarily rush the process, but we also don't take so much time in terms of dilly-dallying while the value and while the industry is growing past the Namibian citizen. So at this stage, we have the draft local content policy passed. I think most of you, we have tabled it, especially to the Commerce region last year, and we have received wide input from you. But we, as a policy that is of importance to growing the economy, we need the voice of the entire Namibian nation into it. And for us to be able to have it balanced, for us to have it received and accepted by all, we therefore are mandated and required to do a whole country national-wide stakeholder engagement. So what we have right now as a schedule is that in the month of May, we are going to take then the local content policy into the regions, all 14 regions of Namibia, and then consider or get their inputs from the regional perspective, from the ground, in terms of the citizen and exactly what do they want and how do they want the policy to serve them. And once we have received it, we then going to have a document that we're going to call the final draft. And the final draft will be circulated again for the industry input before then we put it forward through the process of promulgation. What we have then right now in terms of the timeline is that we are targeting that by the end of 2024, we will have the local content policy adopted, we will have its implementation tool also adopted, and we will have some regulations that are also going to be passed with it, so we will be ready then to apply this local content policy by the end of the year. But what I want the industry to know is that we are not currently operating in a vacuum. And this has been the perception of some, that perhaps there should be no activities happening on the ground while we are waiting for the policy. No. Currently, within the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act and within the Petroleum Agreement, there is already provisions that are made in there that speaks to provision of local content in Namibia. And these are the elements that we need the industry to take on as what they have to use whilst we are waiting for the policy to be adopted. As I said, it's only going to be a matter of a few months until the end of the year, and we will then have the process legislated just for us to be able to provide clarity and to be able to give clear policy guidelines and legislative guidelines to the industry so that there's no ambiguity in terms of what the Namibian government is expecting. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Petroleum Commissioner. Now, the fact that this session is powered by Sonils already shows that it's a company that's very, very passionate and very serious about local content. And I just want to ask you, Ms. Marcos, tell us a little bit about the approach that SONIS has taken in housing different companies along the value chain in one house. And what are some of the lessons that Namibia can learn for themselves when it comes to local content, especially in practice?
Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for having me here and SONILS. And I will not miss the opportunity actually to thank you, the organization and panel, because when I look at this event and at this platform, actually I can relate a lot of what we at SONILS are doing, because this is about bringing people together from different companies, services, and collaborate. And the SONILS model actually is all about bringing collaboration, efficiency, and local growth. Because SONILS actually was strategically built to be a platform where we put together operators, service providers in a place where we provide all the services and we share resources, and with that we basically allowing this collaboration, we putting costs down, we bringing efficiency, we actually reducing also downtime, we're reducing risks, and we have actually opportunity for the big elephants and the small elephants to get together and exchange experience between everyone. Actually, we heard a lot about this proverb, the African proverb today, about if you want to go far, if you want to go far, we need to get together. And actually, our platform is really materializing all this idea about getting together, you know, to go fast and to go far. Because why we are contributing to the local content? As I mentioned, putting together the big international companies, of course, getting all the support. As I mentioned before, we're giving efficiency, reducing costs. We actually supporting the international companies, but you also give opportunity for the small ones to be there, working together in a platform where we'll have more than 100 companies. We have a population of 4,000 plus people circulating every day. So, of course, we have opportunity to exchange experience. We have opportunity actually to elevate the standards of that the industry demands. We actually now, looking at that, we have a lot of examples at SONILS that small companies, that they become like small, and through this almost 30 years that we are in SONILS, they actually increased a lot the footprint. And looking at this reality, we are actually now creating like a business center inside SONILS, where we have a kind of incubator. So what you call, we can call actually entrepreneurs or small companies can actually have opportunity with these sharing services there, have opportunity to bring. Why? To grow. Why? They don't have actually, if everyone needs to invest a massive you need to give like a massive investment in terms of equipment and all the resources needed. Maybe there will not be like a room for that companies to participate in this supply chain channel. So this is all about that. I also need to mention that SONILS is also a big and a good example in Angola of local content, because when you started almost 30 years ago, we partner with foreign company, we receive investment, we have a participation of a lot of expats in the company, and today SONILS is a 100% Angolan owned company, and in terms of the workforce, we actually have 99% of Angolans from the top to the bottom position. So I think this is an example that definitely Namibia can learn from Angola. It is a way to collaborate, and definitely is about getting together, having a room to everyone to participate, and actually giving opportunity to grow. And of course, this contributes to all the economy.
99% local content from top to bottom. I think that's something that's applaudable for Angola, our neighboring country. Now, while we are on the lessons learned topic, I'd like to go to Mr. Simbi. When it comes to Nigeria, you know, it's always a question about if some things were done right, not everything was done right, and some things were done not so right. I don't want to use the other word wrong. Now tell me, Namibia is in a very peculiar position, especially when it comes to lessons learned. What is it that Namibia can learn from Nigeria, the good and the not so good?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. I must say I struggled a bit to hear you because the echo is coming back and it's difficult to hear what you said. But just to put things in context, I think I am the most opportune guy on this panel. Apart from the other male guy who intruded, I would have been the only guy on this panel with all these lovely ladies. So that's an opportunity. Secondly, why I'm very unique is that I spent 26 years of my life working for Shell as a surface engineer and did all kinds of things for Shell. And then I spent the past 7 years working for government, managing local content development for Nigeria. So as you can see, I've been on both sides of the divide. So I will have an in-depth understanding of the thought process of the IOCs and an in-depth understanding of the thought process of the government itself. So I'm in a unique position. And just the third point is to state that I left my position December last year. So I'm a freelancer and I'm supposed to say things without restriction. So I'm the best man on this panel, trust me. But I think if I got your question right, there have been a lot of talk about if Namibia will want to learn from Nigeria in terms of local content development. I think you are very lucky as a country, and I wish that Nigeria started the conversation when oil and gas was discovered 60 years ago. I think we would have been in a different space as we speak today. So Angola is very lucky, and why you must learn from Nigeria, twofold. One, you must learn the mistakes that Nigeria did, and then the other bit, you must then learn those things that Nigerians have done right to be where they are in terms of local content development. Maybe just to put things in context for us to understand. In my days in the oil and gas industry, we used to spend about 21 billion US dollars year on year, both on projects and on production operations. And out of that 21 billion, only 3% remained in the country for a very long time, until when Nigeria decided that enough is enough, and we then decided to enact a policy, and after we enacted a legislation to make sure that this is enforced. So as I speak today, from 2010 till today, we've been able to claw back 12 billion out of that 21 billion in Nigeria. So that is a huge feat that has been achieved. I can also tell you, if you sit in a Nigerian conference, 95% of the participants are Nigerians because they have taken over the business up to that 95%. But today when I look around, 95% of the people sitting in this audience are international service providers and international service companies. So we need to flip that in order to get Angolans to participate. And one of the most important things, Namibians to participate. Sorry, she was too close to me, so I just felt Angola. So you need to get Namibians to participate in the oil and gas sector. And again, the other point to make is that local content is not a one-size-fits-all. You cannot copy and paste Nigeria in Namibia. You cannot copy and paste Brazil in Namibia. Contextually, Nigeria, 200 million people, a lot of entrepreneurs, bullish entrepreneurs, highly educated people in the world, so you cannot copy and paste. Brazil, 70 million people. And Brazil policy of local content was not based on the oil and gas sector alone. It was an industrial policy for the country. And they used that. Petrobras was the only game in town, and they were able to move the ladle quite in an encouraging way And today, they are also an example. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. You must contextualize local content to the Namibian requirement. Therefore, the first thing you have to do is to look at gap analysis. Where are we today? Where do we want to be in the next 5, 10 years? How do we get there? There must be a clear strategy on how that will happen. If you do not start with that strategy, you will continue to have workshops, talk shops, and you will never make progress. So there has to be strategy from the government where we want to be, and then the international oil companies must play a significant role. One thing we saw in Nigeria was that when push came to shove, they said, hey, you don't have the capacity, you don't have the funding, you don't have the capability to provide the service. And in those days when I was in the industry, we tried to push it to the edge and then put time pressure on them to say if you don't buckle, you will not get first oil. And everybody will buckle and we will look for first oil. But since you are starting now, it is a great opportunity for you to develop a strategy for it. Let me stop there for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Simbi. Now, I want to go to Mrs. Mulemi. What strategies can Namibia employ to maximize local participation? And this is across all phases of exploration, not just in the beginning, not just production, and not just when we want to get to development and then production, through all the phases.
Thank you very much, Shaponyale. And thank you for having us as officials from the government. We are very happy as a country that in the absence of an oil and gas industry, and also in the absence of what we are now developing, which is a local content policy, that there were measures in place that were driven by the government to ensure that in the event of a discovery of oil and gas, we are somewhat ready. And one such strategy was the development of the Petro Fund, which is embedded in our law, and also it's embedded in all petroleum agreements that are signed by the operators. What are we doing at the moment? As a result of the discoveries of oil and gas, we are now doing more of what we are already doing. We've ramped up the training of Namibians that should be considered for opportunities within the oil and gas industry. We've expanded the scope of skills that we are offering for training of Namibians. We are collaborating with service companies, not only operators, but also service companies to ensure that we prepare ourselves for the emerging oil and gas industry. We have signed MOUs with a couple of operators, particularly service companies, driving the agenda of making sure that we are ready. I'll just mention a few. We are collaborating with Subsea 7, we are collaborating with Halliburton, we are collaborating with Technip FNC. We have a database that has skills of Namibians that are interested to be considered for employment, and we are happy to report that that database is already being used where operators are approaching us to source skills from that database. We intend to ensure that that database is made electronic by the end of the year. We've already appointed a service company to ensure that we digitalize that database. We are also happy to report that going forward, we'll be looking at strategies that we can bring in service companies to equally be capacitated so that they can participate in the oil and gas industry. I believe my colleague Antoine, who's here, will also comment a little bit on some of the strategies that we've put in place to ensure that Namibians are considered and they participate in the sector.
Thank you, Mrs. Mulemi. And I will go straight to you, Antoine. Maybe you can just elaborate a bit on some of these strategies and these programs that Mrs. Mulemi has mentioned, and then also just what Halliburton, especially your approach in terms to contributing to Namibian content in a practical manner.
First of all, I would like to thank you, the event, to allow Halliburton present their view as a service company on the local content. But first of all, what I would like to say from my point of view, I rather talk about in-country value creations rather than local content. Because you can create local content without adding values. So for Namibia to stay competitive, it's very important that they embed a notion of value creations when they are going to develop the Namibian local content. So, as Halliburton, in-country value creation is really a part of our business model. So, we collaborate on engineer solutions to maximize asset value to our customers. So, maximizing asset values imply the lowest cost of per barrels. Lowest cost per barrels implies really maximizing the in-country value creations. On the in-country value creations is going to imply local content as well. So why it is important for us to maximize asset values on the lowest cost of per barrels is because that's going to allow us on all our suppliers to win work. That's going to allow the operator as well to be competitive, to drill more wells and to produce more from the countries. And that's going as well to allow Namibia to navigate through the cycle of the commodity cycles, right? So whenever the oil price drops, you will see that can create some ravage. So from our side, we have kind of 5 pillars we want to work on when we drive local contents. First one is around developing Namibians. So we understand the country history and we embed that into our hiring process. We have a high focus on diversity and inclusions. So we have an aggressive plan of hiring employees. We collaborate closely with Petrophone as well to ensure we communicate our needs and they feed us with a database as well. So as of today, we have reached 50% of our hiring programs. By this summer, we'll reach 100%. And we have reached about 65% of female in our Namibian team. We don't stop our knowledge transfer to our own team as well. We as well want to ensure that we collaborate toward all the national stakeholders to ensure that we bring them our knowledge, we collaborate with them, bring some expertise, some recommendation as well, and for instance, a MOU we have developed with Petrophone as a good example. Third point is about ensuring we are going to develop a community of local suppliers. But we want to ensure that we are going to develop a very competitive ecosystem of local suppliers that will be able as well to maintain the cost down of our operations. We want to ensure as well they are not a factor of inflation in the industries, because believing that oil and gas can pay more than this, and we are going to accompany them through the process. The fourth portion will be around driving efficiency to the countries. So we are going to drive efficiency to the countries by bringing our own technology to help developing the ultra-deep waters, but as well we can enable some of the stakeholders, national stakeholders as well, to ensure they will keep faster decisions, they will be able to process their own data and be able to have educated discussions with all the stakeholders and be able to monetize their asset value faster.
Thank you.
Just one last thing, very important things. The way we do our business, we want to ensure that we will ethically, diligently, the way, and we are going to communicate that to our own team when we take it back on board, and all the suppliers we take on board as well.
Thank you, Mr. Beryl. And the fact that you are operating in the country and that you are already having this in action is applaudable. Mrs. Faber, I want to come to you. We've heard from Mrs. Shino what it is that the draft local content policy wants to achieve, and also that there are already contributions in the petroleum agreement that speaks to local content, in this case Namibian content. We've heard the examples from Angola, we've heard the examples from Nigeria, and then we've also heard what it is that the Petro Fund is doing. As a local content expert specialist, if you have to name 5 elements, important elements, the criteria for successful local content, in this case Namibian content, what would that be?
Great question, thank you. And good afternoon. It's I'm honored to be here again and share this panel with great people that has this big role of developing Namibian content. So to go quickly, I try to summarize those 5 elements. I think it takes a village and more than 5 elements to do this, but one thing that I would list is alignment, communication, and accountability. As my colleague Simbi mentioned, this is not just the role or the responsibility of the government, it's the responsibility of every key stakeholder. And all the key stakeholders are here. I think we're missing some. We need just to be brief of mentioning who are the key stakeholders. When we say key stakeholders, the government, obviously, as a regulator, the NOCs, if there's one, civil society, industry associations, local suppliers, local workforce, academia, because of the workforce development, the IOCs, major contractors and service providers, the NGOs, and others. So those are all the key stakeholders, and they all have a responsibility. So communication and engagement from all the stakeholders is what is needed. So remember, it's not just the role and responsibility of the government, and the government is in charge of summarizing or taking the feedback from all these key stakeholders. Another element, I think, is a fit-for-purpose policy. And in this case, I'm going to take some of the messages that Mr. Simbi Wabote mentioned. In the case, some countries, it's viewed or it's developed as an industrial policy. But industrial policies, if you have different sectors, they need to address every key sectors. The importance of having industrial policies is that you need to avoid your country, a resource-rich country, to fall into the resource course. So if you focus only on the oil and gas or the extractive, the mining, and you forget about the rest, agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, which is really big, then you're not going to really develop the country consistently. So they have to be policies with linkages to all the key sectors. Continuing with the policy, this policy needs to be inclusive and diverse. So it needs to address Namibian content and including all the groups. That means women, indigenous groups of the communities. So formal and informal businesses, small and medium enterprises. We talked yesterday about the entrepreneurships. And people with all different skill sets. So highly skilled and non-skilled. Also related to industrial policy or the local content policy, if it's focused on oil and gas, then the nature and the nature of the oil and gas business, of the oil and gas projects, it needs to be considered because it has different phases and each phase can last several years. So exploration can be many, many years. It cannot be just 3. It can be 10 years. I've seen it in several countries. Then development, it can be 2, 3 years or 4, but it can be in parallel, like it's happening in Guyana. Guyana's development phase, it's going to be a long one because it's one after the other. And then production, which is the longest phase. So the local content policies need to be fit for purpose and considering every phase. And to finish with my last point is that it needs to have this benefit to the oil and gas sector, but also have the spillover effect to the other sectors.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mrs. Faber. I want to come back to Ms. Marcos, Angola. We've listened to now what the key criteria are, but you've put some of these things already into practice for SONILS. Just tell us a bit what the roles, the companies, the service providers, the operators, and any other elements such as a political landscape in a country, what roles those play to make sure that you have a successful and meaningful local content, and again in this case, Namibian content.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that, yeah, definitely this is, I would say 2 things. I think local content needs to be a project, I would say, that needs to have everyone's commitment, all the stakeholders' commitment. And also, and we mentioned this morning, it's a long-term process. So we need to make sure that we get ready for that and we start now. We're talking about first oil in a few years, so what you need to do from today to make sure that when you get there, we are ready. So I would say, talking about the participants of this environmental, for suppliers, local suppliers and professionals, the message is it takes time and make sure you're ready. This morning I heard a sentence, integration without preparation is a frustration. This is about make sure that we get the right skills, the right capacity. When you talk about this, it's not saying Namibians are not capable, are not competent, but of course, this expertise on the oil and gas is something that we need to make sure we get. My experience as a professional, when I started my career in Angola, I came with two offers of going to a, let's say, mid-level position or going to a low-level position in the oil gas sector in a big company. So definitely a mentor came to me and say, go to where you make sure that you have opportunity to learn because you will get the expertise. So when you go to this mid and high-level position, you will be with all these necessary skills and tools to make a good job. I think this is something that we need to take in account. For the companies as well, again, takes time, is a long term. Of course, CEO sitting in that position, we are investing a lot. We're investing a lot to make sure that we get the operations going, and sometimes investing in people, investing in the local competencies looks like a secondary thing. In Angola, we had this experience where companies are complaining all the time, saying that this sometimes looks like it's an investment that we're doing, and we're losing because we train people and they left the company. We need to understand that what we're doing from today, it's if you are here committed to stay in the country, you need to think not about only your own business, but you need to think about that you are actually developing an environmental in Namibia that you're building capabilities, not only for your companies, but if you're creating an environmental, so of course we'll have the results later. I'm sure that most of the Angolans sitting here in this room and sitting in management positions are like a result of a lot of investment that companies and government did since beginning on this, way to the first oil in Angola. So this is the opportunity we have. And for the government also, it's a long term. Let's make sure that we collaborate with the operators. I think I'm very happy to hear here today from Maggie and the other people that having been in this morning that, yes, Namibia actually is calling the participants to give feedback about the legislation they are creating, to give comments, because we need to make sure that we create an environment that companies are allowed to do business. It's not about creating like a prohibition environmental, but we need to facilitate the approach that companies need to have. And as is already mentioned, this is about not doing only the copy-paste, but we need to make sure that we consider the local context. We need to consider that we have our own culture, our own social reality, economic reality, demographic reality. When you come to build all the regulation around that. So this is something. Of course, you have opportunity to learn from the other countries, to learn from the other players. Actually, I was very happy to hear you talking about Angola, because the challenge for next year for the organization, we may need to start talking about regional content, not only local content, but this is a next conversation. But yeah, let's make sure that we hear from the others, we get the lessons, but we consider their own context to build your local policy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Marcos. And I want to go to the Petroleum Commissioner, and the Minister mentioned it today in his keynote address, where he said that there needs to be a mutually beneficial relationship, that the operators come in, the investors coming in because there's a resource, and the country is collaborating because we need the investors to invest in the country in getting to this resource. Mrs. Shino, how is the ministry balancing this need to attract investment and at the same time have this imperative promoting of the use of Namibian goods, Namibian products, Namibian skills?
First thing that we're doing as a ministry is we are fostering relation and ensuring that there is a collaboration, or it's a collaborative approach that we take in everything that we do. As we said early in the morning, is that the industry is very new to us. As a country, we have our ambition, but we are also aware of the fact that we work in one of the most sensitive and most dynamic sector that one can find. And with this, we are acknowledging the fact that the industry players themselves have an insight or have some skills that they bring to the table that can enable us to either shape, we can shape the industry or we can break it. And because of acknowledgement of that fact, we are being pragmatic in our approach as a government that it must always be a consultative process. Even when we developed our local content policy, the first thing that we did is to invite the industry players. We invited NAMPOA. They were the first people to look at the draft policy as we have it and to provide us their input. But also, for us to ensure that we create legal instruments that are balanced to the need of the industry, we also work hand in hand with the industry to assess also our needs and our capability. As we speak right now, we have the local content policy, but we don't have the regulation already cast in stone to say this is what we are requesting. In order to inform us of the content of that regulation and what threshold we can put in, we have collaborated, MME, Petrofund, Shell, and Total have collaborated for us to put together what we call an industrial baseline study. This study will do a landscape narrative assessment of the Namibian capability and capacity in country. With what we have in country, it will then inform us to make legislative tool that will then allow us to put threshold and also to have an assessment of what are those sectors that we as a country can already be able to serve. If those sectors are identified, can we be able to ring-fence them to say, in this sector, the country has 100% capability and we can restrict them for Namibians. So once the industrial baseline study is passed, it's going to have information that both the industry and the government is going to use, and that will be a very important tool that we will have. Additional to that, we also take an approach of that we don't want to create policy instruments that are too rigid, that you can't move, you can't swing this way or that way, because the industry moves at a fast pace, and the industry is dynamic, as I said. So whatever demand comes, and we find that there is a provision that is inhibiting the growth of the sector, we, as a Namibian government, created that open door policy for conversation. What can we do? How do we enhance this sector? How do we ensure that we have policy instruments or decisions that are able to help the industry, but also that we can be able to change at the same time? But with this conversation, we also maintain an open door for them. And I hope the door is also open on your side, because we also want to come to you whenever we see that we have a provision that we have made and that perhaps Namibians are not being served to the effectiveness of how we have wanted it to be, so that we can also have that conversation to say, perhaps let us reconsider this. And it's that collaborative approach that we have created and the conducive environment that we have created as a ministry that will enable us to then create policy instruments that are balanced pro-industrial growth.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The message is clear: collaboration. In order for us to come up with proper, successful Namibian content is collaboration. Now we are running out of time, and many have said that the oil and gas industry is male-dominated, but then in Namibia the picture is very different. It's very different, and I think the panel right here now is an indication of that. So I would like, as we're going to round this up and just ask for my panelists to give their parting words, I'd like to start with the gentleman. And if I can start with you, Mr. Simbi, someone who has both private sector as well as government, if you can just give us your closing comments on what Namibia can do right to make sure that we are the first ones to have a 100% excellent, successful Namibian content policy.
All right, thanks. I think for me, it's very straightforward. When I hear Namibia talking about taking so long a period to come out with a policy, in Nigeria, the policy was very simple, just like any company strategy. As an example, Shell will say, we want to grow our production to 4 billion barrels. That is a strategy statement. What we did in Nigeria with regards to policy is that we said we want to grow Nigerian content from 0 to 25% by year X, and we want to grow it to 70% by year Y. That was the policy statement. And we handed this over to the state oil company, NAMCO or so, to say, look, get together with the stakeholders and agree on strategy on how to achieve these various targets. So it was a co-creation between the stakeholders, international oil companies, and the state oil company by breaking down all the activities in the oil and gas sector, from construction, projects to production, and then out of those activities, they started taking the immediate, the short-term, the long-term view on what they have to do to achieve those targets. So you do not need to spend the whole time talking about a policy. It is a clear policy statement. By the year 2015, by the year we're in 2024, by the year 2030, we want to get to 50%, 2035 or whatever, we want to get 70%. State oil company, get together with your stakeholders and come back to us on how you want to achieve the simple policy statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Very briefly. Antoine, very briefly, your closing comments.
Yeah, so again, let's ensure that we integrate the notion of value creations when building the Namibian local content strategies, very important. The success of the in-country value creation strategy will be obviously employment of Namibians, not only employment, but as well being able to export the expertise outside. We'll be able to ensure that we develop a strong, solid base of suppliers that will have the global, international standard as well, on build in-country capacities. But the key aspect as well is that we need to ensure as well that we are going to maintain operation efficiencies, which is QHSE. We are going as well to maintain lower cost per barrels. We are going as well to ensure the country remain competitive and that the country can navigate through the cycle of the oil and gas. And in this sense, we want to ensure that we achieve sustainable economic growth that's going to beneficial to all Namibians.
Thank you. Mrs. Mulemi, if I can ask you.
Thank you very much. One of the key instruments of local content that provides a direct benefit to a society is employment, training, upskilling. We would like to invite all those stakeholders that have a keen interest in Namibia's oil and gas sector to not wait for the policy to start working with key government stakeholders. We are one of them, to ensure that we train Namibians now and not later. We have extended an invite to service companies through the Office of the Directorate of Petroleum Affairs to already start talking to us so that we can look at how we can get ourselves ready for the industry as it evolves. That extension of collaboration is still open. Please, you're welcome to call our office so that we can discuss how we can collaborate. Let's not wait. Let's do so now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Faber?
Thank you. I'd like to leave a message with you, and remember that local content doesn't come as a cookie cutter. However, there are good examples out there globally that can be seen and can be studied and analyzed to apply it to your country and to other countries. So, and to name a few, Suriname, excellent success story because of alignment in collaboration between government and the IOCs. So PPP, public-private partnership. Guyana, they engage or they address the needs of the suppliers early on in the stages. They created an enterprise development center, which is a school for suppliers. Brazil, they adjusted and adapt with time, but they waited till the market till the industry was mature enough to change. The Asian countries, they use knowledge transfer to diversify their economy. And Belize, a tiny, tiny country in Central America, their production, oil production is very, very minimal, but they did wonderful things, amazing big things with that oil production to their economy. So keep that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shino, because you are the host country, I'll ask if Mr. Marcos can please go first, and then you close up our session for us.
Yeah, I'll be very quickly. Basically, it's all said, but I would say make sure that we build capabilities. We work together with the companies. We understand their needs on long term, mid and long term, and we actually create a workforce plan to make sure that we'll be able to meet that. Make sure that we collaborate, and we collaborate with the others. We are open to that. We are also open to receive Namibians, because we actually realize that we've been with these 30 years doing logistic operators. We actually development expertise, and we became actually a reference on the region. We're receiving a lot of people from Namibia, Suriname, Congo, other countries to coming to trying to get experience. We create like an excellence center to make sure that we are able to help. So work with the others. Don't lose the time. Learn from others to make sure that we expedite the process of bringing capabilities, because this is key. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think from our side, we call upon all stakeholders, both Namibians and international stakeholders, to provide your inputs, look into the policy, even just to tell us if you are on the right, if you are happy with it. That is also a positive feedback that we need. To the Namibian stakeholders, Namibian people, develop your capability and grow your capacity. That is the only call that I can make. The international stakeholders, please ensure that there is knowledge being transferred in all your activities, as the industry is growing already currently. The financing sector, please ensure that you provide the financing mechanism to grow this industry, to allow these SMEs to develop and be able to participate meaningfully. With that, that will be a perfect ingredient for us to be able to then say we are indeed developing a Namibianization or a Namibian industry that is managed from the industry or from Namibia with the perspective of a Namibian context. That's all we ask for.
Thank you very much, Ms. Shino. And with that collaboration, mutually beneficial relationship, and for any relationship to work properly, everybody needs to bring their part. Government bring their part, private sector bring their part, IOCs and operators. And then this we can be, Namibia again is in the very opportune, very beautiful position to learn from what has not been done right, and to learn what has been done right, in order to make sure that we have a successful, impactful and meaningful Namibian content. And also, as said, not only the policy, but also a regulation. From me, Mwanyangwanda Pewoshali Shapwanale, it's been a pleasure moderating this panel, and I hope you got a lot out of the knowledge from each and every panelist. Can we please thank our panelists with a round of applause? Have a good afternoon and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Perfect. A round of applause, please, one more time, ladies and gentlemen, as they do make their way off stage. There will be a group picture that will be taken to commemorate this moment and occasion, but I think adequately put by our moderator in terms of providing a synthesis of the conversation that we've had today. I do want to remind you that we have 2 more sessions that are lined up, 1 more panel discussion which will come up to conclude the process and the conversations that have been taking place in the day, essentially the energy master plan and what it takes to ensure that we have all the necessary factors that apply to that. But our next speaker will be certainly unpacking opportunities to enable Namibia's offshore prosperity. This is a presentation, of course, one that will give us a lot more clarity on the understanding of the local environment. For those of you who would like to stretch your legs, participate in a separate session, you've got about a minute to do so. However, we do want you to remain seated, as there is just 2 more sessions available for you to participate in. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to welcome our next speaker to the stage, who will actively participate in a presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker joins us from SLB, helping us further unpack the exploration data as well as geo-solutions that are necessary to continue to highlight opportunities within Namibia's offshore coastland. Andrea Lavotini joins us now on stage. He's the Director for Exploration Data and Geo-Solutions at SLB. Please warmly welcome Andrea Lavotini.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. First of all, sorry for standing between you and the cocktails later, but as we just heard, there are more panels coming, so be patient, and I'll try to be fast so that we can recover some time. So first of all, I want to thank the distinguished guests and members, and I hope I'll catch your attention soon. So there are 4 things I'm going to talk to you about today. First of all, SLB in Africa, and how we are using digital, and how we are using data. And my job is being in charge of data, and in particular exploration data. And Namibia has done me personally a big favor, because Namibia brought back the word frontier exploration in the vocabulary. Up to 2 years ago, saying exploration, and even worse, saying frontier, was a banned word, was a bad word. So with the discoveries that happened in the country, you managed to bring back in the radar the word frontier. So first of all, let me start introducing what SLB did 1.5 years ago. 1.5 years ago, in October 2022, we rebranded from Schlumberger into SLB. We didn't do that because I wasn't capable of placing the H when spelling Schlumberger, but we did that to state strongly that we wanted to be a technology company, and a global technology company, driving innovation for a balanced planet. And it's important that we focus on the word global, which means Africa as well, and I'm going to show you in a few slides how our presence is strong and will continue to be strong in Africa, but also balanced planet, because we recognize the challenge of the energy trilemma, and we want to play that challenge in a balanced manner, being pragmatic and being innovative. We are going to play that challenge along 3 core axis. The first one is what we call our core business, which is in the oil and gas domain. We do that in 2 folds. First of all, continuing our technology innovation and designing from scratch what we do through innovation to be thinking about abating emission, to be thinking about increasing and enhancing performances. And at the same time, we want to play in the oil and gas industry to decarbonize this industry. I think service companies, energy companies have a huge responsibility, but also a huge opportunity to decarbonize our own industry. So that's our key mandate in the core. And then we have other 2 engines that we think will grow a lot. The first one is on the new energy side, using our technology, using our adjacent competencies to drive investment and drive the development of alternative resources. And the third element, and this is where I sit in SLB, the digital division. So we want to deliver digital at scale. And delivering digital means using data and innovating through the use of data. So this is something that is very, very important, and it ticks all the boxes that we heard this morning. We heard about going far, but also going fast. So digital at scale means this, means still going very far, but doing that with an accelerated pace. Now, I'm very proud to show this slide. So SLB has a 90-year-plus history in Africa. And we started, I'm also very proud, we started with geophysical measurements, the business I'm in charge of. And then, however, we evolved all along different domains. And if you see one of the last milestones last year was opening a branch here in Namibia. And we are very proud of being here, and we think we are going to grow a lot together with the country in Namibia. And I'm going to speak very quickly about in-country value. So today in Africa, we employ more than 5,000 people, and 95% of those are Africans. Not only that, we have more than 2,000 Africans that we send all around the world to learn technically, increase their competencies, being exposed to different countries, different culture, different technology, taking leadership roles to then lead back in their own country in Africa. So we're very proud of that. Not only that, as you see, we have a lot of facilities, and we try to develop and cultivate an ecosystem of local suppliers. And in Namibia, we've already worked to develop capacity. We've already worked with 4, 5 plus small companies to really build that local competency, the local supply chain that is essential for local content and in-country value. And of course, because I'm in charge of the seismic business, I need also to tell you that in Africa, we have more than 200,000 square kilometers of 3D data. And I lost the screen in front of me. And I think a lot more to do. So in-country value for us mean several different things. I'm not going to go through all these 6 bullets, but I want to mention a couple of things. We hire where we work. So in Namibia, we are hiring. And last year, we hired more than 60 local talents to be inside our field operations. And we plan to increase by 50% this year and to keep increasing. So that's something we do in every country where we operate, because we want to be a local company wherever we operate. We don't want to rely only on international expertise. We want to build the expertise locally. And of course, we partner with university, we partner with the local environment. The other element I want to mention is the supply chain. As I said, that's very important. We want to have a supply chain that is local, not only for to manage cost, but to manage efficiencies, to manage performances, to manage also that environment that can lead to a faster growth for not only for us, but for all the players in the country. Now, talking about digital, I'm going to spend one minute generally talking about digital, and then I'm going to jump back into Africa. So digital for us is very important. As I said, for SLB is one of our 3 core divisions. And digital is enabling reducing cycle time, is enabling using all the data available and making all the data available to all the users at the same time. So you can think of a quadrant, our digital ambition. We want to speed up workflows, and we want to give you access to data. And by giving access to data, we want to employ artificial intelligence whenever and in ways that even today we cannot imagine. But so these 2 panels, workflows and data and AI, are key important. And then we have 2 columns where we want to focus. In the planning, everything that happens in our offices when we plan operation, from exploration and appraisal up through production. And the other column is the field operations. So digital should not only be employed in the offices, but should become part of smart asset. When we drill, and I'm going to spend a few words on digital drill in a minute, which I think it's a very exciting development that our industry is leading. Now, in Africa, I'm just showing you this map of the sub-Saharan Africa. And what is highlighted here are basically deployment and adoption of technology that is less than 2 years old in these countries. As you can see, countries adopting our ecosystem called Delphi, countries adopting our automation in drilling, and country adopting insights on data. Just 3 brief examples. The first one is digital drilling. We believe digital drilling will not only make our operation at a higher performance, but it will also make our operation cheaper and more environmentally friendly. You probably have seen a news that was announced by SLB and by ENI about the adoption of digital drilling and automated digital drilling in the Congo. I want to talk to you about this example because you're going to hear soon about this coming from Namibia as well. In that case, we were able to drill a well twice as fast as the average in the same field. And we were able to start that from the planning phase to the automation phase. And to describe what does it mean to plan a well digitally and then to adopt an advisory and an automation mode, you can think of the word of a car. Of course, automation is very easy. So you automate a well in the same way you automate a car. But even before you automate a car, there's something that we are already all doing today. We all, when we get into a car, we take our phone and we put the itinerary in Google Maps or equivalent, and we check how's the traffic gonna be, how far should I drive, how long will it take me. And the Drill Ops advisory does the same. However, it does it with a well. So you can use all the subsurface data, all the information that you have on analog wells in the area. And you can see your Google Maps there, but telling you how you're going to drill that well, which are going to be the risks that you're going to encounter, where you need to change your decision. So this is something that is available today. And of course, some of our most pioneering customers are already adopting the automation, like the ENI Congo case. And you heard probably about Equinor in Brazil. And a lot more customers are adopting these technologies. And automation means reducing the time, which means reducing the cost, and at the same time means reducing emission and reducing the exposure of our people on the rigs. The ambition is really to go and achieve almost 0 people on a rig once everything will be automated. The other two examples here, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but Aura is our reservoir testing platform. And again, this is an example of innovating in the oil and gas sector. This platform was designed to consume half of the energy, to emit 96% less than the equivalent alternatives on the market, and to do, for example, deep transient testing without flaring. So it's a technology that is digital from its very inception and will change the game in the field. And smart seismic, you probably, I don't know if you know, but as SLB, we are an asset-light company in the multi-client and seismic space. That means that we keep acquiring data, but we do that hiring different companies. However, something that we do ourselves is a smart survey and acquisition design that goes from the geological challenges up to the imaging that is going to be used to determine the understanding of the subsurface. And that has been essential, and we are going to keep driving that performance even in Africa, where we have already started in North Africa, and we're going to do that in West Africa next, and later on in East Africa. Now, another element of digital that I want to present to you, which we do in partnership with governments, is called National Upstream Gateway. In this particular model, we partner with governments, we become an investor in a country, and we basically create a digital promotion network to attract investors into a country. We work with the government in creating a data repository to retain and preserve the country data. But then we not only preserve the data, we invest to rejuvenate the data, to evergreen the data with the latest technology. And there's a lot of information that can be obtained by rejuvenating data with the adoption of new workflows, new seismic imaging and processing workflows through ML, through AI, and through the latest advancements. Not only that, what we do, we create a discovery center. So we work the data ourselves together with the government to prepare basically the government to drive discussions with investors. And we acquire new data whenever needed and whenever new data is going to add something else. Whenever, going back to those smart design, we design solutions that can answer problems that haven't been solved yet. And this is one of the two national upstream gateways we have in Africa. One is in Egypt, The other one is in Algeria. Again, I'm just showing here a map. When we rejuvenate data, in this case, we were able to rejuvenate several thousands square kilometers of data to give really a regional context, one of the most prolific areas in Egypt. But at the same time, we not only treat seismic data, we treat any type of data. And once you manage your data, then you can apply AI and artificial intelligence to derive insights. And in the dashboard below, you see a lot of dashboards that are employed by the EUG in Egypt to give you information on production, on trends, on exploration potentials, so on a heat map. So this is something that is possible whenever you have organized your data in a coherent manner. Let's talk about Namibia. So we are very excited about Namibia. Our geology and subsurface team has started studying the data, and we see high-quality source rock spread throughout the country. So the data that the country already has can tell us more, and we're studying that through both competent subject matter experts as well as algorithms. So we plan to reprocess 15,000 square in the Luderitz and Wolvis basin. And the reason is that, again, we see the potential from a source rock and plate type point of view, and we believe that exploration in Namibia has only just started. With around 47 wells drilled in a huge space, there is, and mostly in shallow water, we believe we can unlock the potentials. So there's a lot more data out there that can be reprocessed with the latest technologies for imaging and for signal processing. We plan to acquire new data, and we believe there is more to be explored, even beyond the Orange. Of course, the Orange Basin is today the most successful frontier exploration story in the world, I would say, having a look at the global picture of exploration. But we believe Luderitz and Wolvis and Namibia geology, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on explaining play types that we see, but our experts are studying and have been studying the data in the country, and will be very, very happy to discuss more. But the main message to bring home is that we believe the potential, the resource that we can unlock in the countries are a lot more than what we see today, and definitely we can go beyond the Orange Basin, and we can go explore the entire offshore panorama in the country. And with this, I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for your patience, for being here. And I think I'm giving you back 2 minutes and a half, which is probably good to catch up a little bit on the schedule, although not much. So thanks a lot. Thank you.
Andrea. Thank you so much, Andrea. Yep, he gave us some extra time, so quite a sport there, as well as really giving us some clarity and context into the opportunities that exist. And as you've heard, it does seem as though the opportunities have just started in terms of the ongoing exploration activities, specifically within the Orange Basin. Well, we now shift gears to our last session for today. You made it. Through all the conversations, through all the presentations, we are officially going to host our final panel discussion for today, but it remains a critical conversation for everybody involved. So we do want you to actively participate, as over the next 40 minutes, we will have a panel discussion which is focused on the energy master planning for Namibia and the region. One thing is quite certain is that the opportunities present within the energy space are favorable to the region overall, and of course have ripple effects in terms of the economic multiplier across the SADC region. This will be moderated by Bibola Kolawole, who joins us from Rystad Energy. Panelists who will be joining this particular conversation include John Titus, who joins us from Namibia Power Corporation, Manfred Munjua, who joins us as well from Kudu BW Energy, Robert Kahimise, Chief Executive Officer of the Electricity Control Board, joined by Mtundeni Ndayafa Kwalako, who joins us from NAMCOM. Please warmly welcome our panelists on stage. They will be joining us for a conversation, and of course, will be engaging with us quite closely. Ladies and gentlemen, please give your panelists a round of applause.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for your patience. I think we're the last for the day. It's lovely to be back here. It's my second time in Namibia, and also my second time participating with the Namibian International Energy Conference. With the theme, Reimagining Resource-Rich Namibia, I think, of course, with the discovery, with the Kudu discovery in '74, there was a lot of imagination. You know, Namibians were imagining what are the prospects for us, what's the possibilities. And now I was having a conversation with one of my Namibian friends, who's one of the leading female geologists in Namibia. And I said to her, it seems you guys are having discoveries almost every quarter. And she says, no, it's every Tuesday. We need to talk to DJ Khalid, you know, and another one. So I found that really interesting. By way of reintroduction, I have been introduced already. My name is Bimbola Kolawole, and Vice President, Business Development for African Market at Rystad Energy. We are a business intelligence and advisory company headquartered out of Norway. I am happy and pleased to be here to share the stage with industry experts from Namibia. And yes, let's begin with the topic, Energy Master Planning for Namibia and the region. So yes, this is a very interesting and topical subject we want to talk about. And it suits and goes very well with the theme of the conference, Reimagining Resource-Rich Namibia. Of course, there's got to be a master plan. There's got to be a plan to ensure that the resources, of course, belongs, you know, to the people. And the people, of course, or the government or, you know, the operators need to work together. And of course, it goes beyond Namibia. It would be for the region in entirety. So on the stage with me, as I said, leading experts in the country, of course, in the energy space, of course. I don't need to reintroduce them. They've been introduced, and you can see their name on the screen as well. I'll just go straight into the questions I have put together for this gentleman. And I'm going to start on my immediate left, Mutundeni. I have a question, very interesting one. Can you give us, the audience, a brief, I'll say an update on the discovered potential, and where does NAMCO see the Namibia crude production region within the next decade? What are your thoughts on that?
Thank you, Bimbola. I think it's a pleasure again to be here among the familiar faces. Just to give you a brief response, so from 2022 up to this year, we are talking about 3 discovery licenses now. So for us, of course, from NAMCO, this is, as some of our colleagues have mentioned, this is a dream come true. So as you know, appraisal is ongoing. We are conducting post-well studies, and we are trying to mature the form development concept for us to reach the production as soon as possible. Of course, before we comment on the timing of the whole production, we have to appreciate that each one of these discovered fields present its own technical uniqueness. So ranging from water depth, from the technology that you have to deploy to bring these fields on stream. So of course, all of them will take a different and a unique development path. But as of now, of course, from NAMCO, we are confident that we should have at least 2 solid development cases. And I think one of them, Manfred is going to talk about it later. But we anticipate our first production to happen at around the beginning of 2029. So we are fairly confident that what we are looking at now, it's pointing to pretty much commerciality, and we should reach first oil for oil around 2029. So we can't talk about production without talking about the associated gas. So NAMCO and the Ministry of Mines and Energy are busy looking at alternative gas monetization concepts. You know, we have a lot of GOR in these discoveries, and we cannot leave this gas in the ground if we want to harvest all the value for the Namibians. So to sum up, a decade from now, from what we see, we anticipate to have at least 7 producing fields, And Namibia could actually be producing in the region of 750 to about 100,000 barrels of oil per day. And then we stand a chance of actually entering in the top 10 of the Africa's of the world's top oil producers.
Yeah, that is quite right. I do remember attending one of the presentations yesterday, and from last year's presentation on the way forward for Namibia, Namibia was ranked number 11 in terms of the countries, the top countries with significant discoveries, and this year it's ranked all the way to number 9. And that's just impressive. Well, thank you very much, Mutundeni. So I'm going to bring in Manfred now. Manfred, as BW Energy progresses a revised development plan for the Kudu gas project, what activities are currently underway, and what does the plan entail?
Thank you very much. Am I audible? Yes, I am. So the previous host was talking about an all-female panel. I think we probably brought the balance now with this panel. So in our last presentation, we informed the conference that we're in the process of acquiring new seismic. We completed that acquisition in May last year, just after the conference. We have received the early products, the fast track and the pre-fast track data. We expect to receive the final PSDM in July, August of this year. Just like everybody else, we have seen amazing prospectivity elsewhere beyond where you have the Kutu main, and we intend to drill that. So in order to make sure that we don't have a suboptimal development in terms of the Kutu project, we have agreed to accelerate the drilling, at least of 2 wells. We're looking 2 wells that we have now accelerated to start in May next year, May-June next year. In fact, we are already in the market for long lead items. We have gone out for wellheads. We're in the process of procuring conductors, casings, and things like that. And then soon after, we'll go out for a rig. What we then, with regard to the base case project, we have presented a power purchase agreement with NamPower. We are very eager that we conclude negotiations soon. And then we have also engaged with the Electricity Control Board, the ECB. We have submitted 2 applications, one a generation license and another transmission license, and they have given us the go-ahead to go and advertise to engage stakeholders. We do have one challenge that I don't think has been discussed throughout the various presentations, and it is related to land access. So our pipeline lands in Elizabeth Bay, which is just south of Lutteritz. The onshore portion of that pipeline runs through a diamond concession acreage. And we have been at an impasse now for about a year to conclude the mechanics on how we will coordinate and cooperate once we are in operation. Of course, the ministry has been seized with this matter. We hope that they will find a solution in the near term. And this is quite urgent. As you heard this morning, the commissioner talked about, they have put like a stringent timeline for us to deliver gas in 2027. So we need this issue on land access to be resolved. And it's not just impacting the Kutu project. So within that region, as you may have heard, Lutteritz will soon become the energy hub of Namibia. So there are other 3 projects that are impacted by the same thing. 2 RE project, and then the government flagship hyphen project. So we urge the government to resolve this, because if we are seen not being able to coexist between various projects, I think it will deter investment, particularly the ones that are shore-focused.
Interesting. Thank you, Manfred. I mean, with BW Energy, it's almost a long-term work that has been going on, and you've done a lot of interesting work on the Kudu gas yourself, Manfred. Thank you very much for that. I mean, we can't talk so much about, the energy space or the oil and gas space specifically without touching upon the effects of energy transition in the world, and we can't pretend that that may not also be something that would come up as Namibia is looking to, in a positive manner, explode within this, the resources that keeps getting discovered every time. So to this, I want to find out what the policies the ministry has adopted to foster an investor-friendly climate in the energy transition era. Okay, I'm going to take that again. What policies has the ministry adopted to foster an investor-friendly climate in the energy transition era, where hydrocarbon-producing countries compete for global funding? This question is going to go to Kagane Simpson.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Bimbola. You said the question is going to government. I'm the MD of Nampower. Yeah, I don't know whether I should speak for government now or...
Can you take that again?
I can.
Yeah. Okay.
I can tackle it, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Go for it, John.
Okay. In terms of policy development, as a ministry, in our opinion, we did quite well over the last few years. In early 2015, we were directed by our head of state to review and to update the various policies and legislative framework. And the main aim was to increase private sector investment in the energy sector. As a result, we developed the National Energy Policy. That is the overarching policy that drives the development of the energy sector. So that policy is very clear. There's no specific focus on any energy source, natural energy source. So it promotes the development of all energy sources, including solar, wind, oil, gas, nuclear, and the list goes on. But then also because of that, we've developed another policy, the renewable energy policy, and that was a policy already forward-looking into today where we are. In that policy, we already indicated that we slowly need to reduce our reliance on those sources that has a high carbon footprint, and also to become a regional energy hub for our region. So we have the renewable energy policy, and very importantly, to encourage investment in the power generation sector, we've developed an independent power producers policy. So that policy we can see the fruits of that policy, and that policy also paved the way for the modified single buyer market model. So that policy, one of the directives was that we need to review the market model. And in 2019, government has modified the single buyer model. Now, independent power producers can transact directly with large power users, cutting out some of the bureaucracy and also giving that a possibility to interact directly. So those are some of the initiatives, and we've seen the fruits of those initiatives. We have more than 250 megawatt of independent power producers, power plants operating in the country. Most of them are connected to the grid, some of them are embedded. Yes, it may, 200 megawatt may look small in terms of a megawatt, but in terms of the size of the country is quite a sizable investment, and we definitely, there's a few others that are under construction that will add to the 200 megawatt. Let me stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much for that. So, I mean, you say that, and I think this just pivots me straight back to Kahenge. I think I pronounced your name correctly this time around. My apologies. So with John's explanation, do you then think we could see fossil fuels playing a major role in potentially enhancing energy security and electrification rates in the country? of course, you know, with electricity being part of, power generation being part of the electricity mix based on the evolving upstream markets in Namibia.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question, Bimbola. Let me start by saying that, yes, it is true that today we are in a transitional period. A transitional period from fossil fuel to the renewables. But however, no one can really expect a dramatic change overnight. That transition period may become longer or whatever the case may be as time goes. But in the meantime, while that transition is ongoing, there is this huge window for where fossil fuels will play a significant and vital role to make sure that our economies are powered. And in our planning, we are planning quite a lot of renewable energies. We are planning also some of it for our dispatchable plants. We are still looking in terms of fossil fuels as a matter of having a much more robust energy mix in the country. Yeah, therefore, one could foresee a very much longer period before renewables could really come out and be able to give us that type of energy in terms of baseload. But fossil fuels will continue to be there for some time to come.
Okay. Thank you for that. And I do agree with you. Yes, renewables is important. Yes, energy transition is happening globally. But I think for us here in Africa, I'm a big advocate of energy addition, because what are we really transitioning from at this time? But of course, as we continue to have discoveries, we need to produce in a sustainable manner. So I'm a big advocate of that. Thank you so much, Kahenge. And yes, so now I think I will have Robert's attention. I've got a question for you, Robert. So what opportunities are there for global investors to participate in the ongoing efforts to link the electricity infrastructure with the planned regional energy corridors? And how does the SADC compare to other regions in this regard?
Thank you for the question. I hope you also won't mind if I try to put Namibia into context, especially when we talk about access, opening up the market, as well as also acknowledging the global village that we live in, the interconnectedness of Namibia in a Southern African power pool. I always like to refer, especially our international audience, that Namibia geographically, we are as big as Nigeria, was 3 million population only. So whenever we talk either electricity access or the energy transition, it's always in a regional context. So please keep in mind, as much as we open up the Namibian market, or in this case, the generation of electricity, please take note, we are also dealing with a government with policy objectives of increasing access to electricity. We are around below 50% in terms of electricity access. So there's universal access on one side. We have also, through a government policy, achieved what we call cost-reflective tariffs in Namibia. And that's why most people will hear about what we call is a modified single buyer, which is a modification of the single buyer market model specifically to attract investment into the generation of electricity. Not necessarily to meet local demand, but also to supply the region, as well as also as the market evolves into the continent. So allow me, just following your question, Namibia is a member, as I've mentioned, of SAP, and is currently interconnected through South Africa as well as Zambia. Currently, we are experiencing, as we have opened up this market, constraints, transmission constraints in evacuating power from Namibia to Zambia as well as the Northern Cape in South Africa. So as much as the market is ahead in terms of attracting investment, the transmission network should be able to enable to evacuate that power so that we can link seamlessly not only to the region as well as also on a continental master plan. I have to emphasize that one. So there is therefore an opportunity for our global investors to invest in these multi-billion-dollar sub-interconnectors and transmission projects to strengthen in-country transmission network, as well as to increase evacuation capacity, as I have referred to. Namibia is currently experiencing constraints on the transmission export links, as I've mentioned. Countries, especially during certain periods, this is the variable renewable energy, as alluded to by the MD of Nampower as well, because they generate almost at the same time, that is now solar PV as well as wind, which is prevalent here in Namibia. This challenge has created an opportunity for investors to unlock the potential that Namibia has regarding renewable energy. As much as we are sitting with a potential to become the regional energy hub, there are various issues that we have to deal with, and this cannot be resolved in isolation. In Namibia, we are planning on a regional context. If you look at the challenges on economies of scale and the limitations that we have as a country, and that's why evacuation of power from Namibia and connecting to countries like Angola and also Botswana and other countries is very important for us to be able not only to strengthen internal transmission network, but also to increase access to all Namibians as per the government policy of universal access by 2040. As a regulator, we are kept busy by ensuring that the tariff basket does not actually create stranded assets. We cannot just continue rolling out the network, especially rural network, which is fully funded by government, without acknowledging the cost of electricity. So it's a balancing act, which both private and government, we should contribute to realize that. Thank you.
So there's a lot of encouragement for public-private partnership in this regard. Thank you very much. I think it's very insightful, your analysis there, and this just takes me, because you talked about the different sources of renewable energies. You did mention solar, but I do have a question here. Namibia has some of the highest solar irradiance potential in the African continent. And from what we see, there's only about 180 megawatts of solar PV installed. Are there policies that the government have adopted to support investment in renewable energies? I'm not trying to make this so much of a renewable sort of, panel, but it does seem a case of, there's a lot of talks about all the discoveries, there's a lot of talks about, oil and, of course, associated gas, and there's a massive potential on the gas aspect as well. But let's not forget that there's abundance of sun and that can actually also be utilized as a part of the energy mix. So what policies have the government adopted to support investment in renewable energies? John, do you have any information on this one?
Yes, thank you again for the question. As earlier indicated, we've got the renewable energy policy that encourages the investment in renewable energy sources. However, as the CEO of ECP has indicated, that there are technical challenges. We're all aware that we can only generate electricity from solar when the sun is shining. And also when there's cloud cover, you also have a reduced generation from those power plants. So that creates fluctuations in the energy supply, and that can cause instability in the national grid. So in rolling out of this, we need to be cognizant of those challenges and making sure that we find measures to mitigate those challenges. So the policy is open. As Mr. Kaimisi also indicated, the market is open. We've opened up the generation side of the market. There's actually, from a policy perspective, we don't see any hindrance for investment to invest in this industry. What I can perhaps need to mention also, besides the technical constraints, there's also the issue of market access. And I was happy that Honorable Alwendo before lunch also indicated, if you have a product, you also need to consider who will be your offtake, who will be your market. So in that regard, the ministry with some of our development partners is busy with a study. It's called the regional market study. So seeing that we want to become a regional renewable energy hub, we need to determine those markets first before we can really fully exploit that opportunity. We envisaged a study to be done still this year, and that study will give us an indication what needs to be done so that we can access those markets. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And that said, we need to talk about energy security. Right. So, I mean, Robert did mention the importance of economies of scale and, the potentials for working on a regional level. How is Namibia collaborating with its neighbors to enhance energy security? Are there joint projects or initiatives aimed at regional energy integration? This is my question, but I also wanted to highlight that I think the previous panel, there was a conversation between Mr. Simbi Wabote and the managing director of Sonils as well about regional collaboration. So this question is for you, Mutundeni. How is Namibia collaborating with its neighbors to enhance energy security?
Thanks, Bimbola. So I think from a regional perspective, we have to acknowledge that we have to do a lot to secure energy security. So from a SADC perspective, energy poverty is real, and we have to know that we can't reach our development and industrialization goals if we don't solve this energy security. So from our industry perspective, of course, if we have to collaborate, the easiest way we can start is with our southern neighbor who is close to our resources. And if you look at the respective integrated resources plans of Namibia and South Africa, so from an oil and gas perspective, we are happy and glad to know that both countries have big intentions of trying to explore and commercialize their gas resources to solve this energy poverty, especially focusing on LNG. So while in South Africa's IRP, which I think is the newest, I think the draft was just circulating recently for public comment until 2023, while they have indicated clear intentions that gas to power is now being elevated, and they expect about 6 gigawatts from that. So Namibia's own is not so clear. We don't think gas takes center stage, but this is something that we believe should change. Mm-hmm. So before we go to collaborate regionally, of course, we have to start at home. We have to make sure that our gas resources here are developed so that we meet first and we solve our energy poverty in Namibia before we can collaborate with the others. And especially, we believe Kudu gas can come in as the fellow panelists have said, to provide that base load and create support for the renewables to come in. So last year there have been materialization of this collaboration between Namibia and South Africa. There has been ministerial delegations where we are looking at how we can tackle this issue of energy. Yes, as Mr. Kaimis has said, infrastructure, for example, in the Northern Cape. How can we create synergies so that we can leverage on Namibia's gas resources to support the entire region, for example. So that's why from a NAMCO perspective, we are very passionate and we are serious about making sure that the associated gas to our discoveries is monetized. We believe that not only does it have capacity for electricity generation locally, but we can also go other routes such as LNG and try to solve the energy issues of a more wider area. So to our northern part, I'm happy to see our Sonangol colleagues are here. We have already started those collaborations, and we are looking in terms of our downstream energy, for example, where we can share refinery resources and other associated.
Excellent, thank you, Mutsundeni. Manfred, I'm quite curious and keen to hear your thoughts on that as well, especially with your experience on the Kudu gas.
Yeah, so I remember in 2017, 2018, the SADC, the head of state, convened in Johannesburg, and they started work on a regional gas master plan. And the idea was to make sure that all of these individual efforts are combined into an integrated project to serve the region, to identify where the sources of reserves are in terms of gas, and then where the demand nodes are. And I remember while in NAMCO, we took that up with the ministry. I was roped into a committee led by the Petroleum Commissioner to assist in providing inputs. I have since left the government sphere, so I'm not too sure. I mean, of course, they're very much able people within there, including my successor who was closer to you. So I'm sure those efforts have continued. But I think there's a much more relevant example that will be useful to Namibia. You have the Romco line between South Africa and Mozambique. It's been a very successful project to sustain industry in South Africa within the Gauteng area and then within the Durban area. But as we know, that the Panda and Tamane fields, those resources are tapering. And there are two options available now for the people, for the users. It's either to get gas from the northern fields in Mozambique, that's another over 1,000 kilometers of additional pipeline that needs to be built, or alternatively is for Namibia and South Africa to collaboratively engage in similar initiative. And since we have all of these gases or gas resources that have been discovered, yet to be fully appraised, granted, but a project can be conceived almost in the manner that the Petroleum Commissioner explained this morning, Kutu being a gathering hub, delivering gas within Namibia, and then have an onward extension that continues into South Africa. Because the last thing that we want is for while Namibia probably has not met its industrialization target, we are part of SACO. The last thing we want is for the region to de-industrialize as a result of shortage of energy and so on.
All right. Interesting. Thank you, Manfred. I have one more question, and I want to take it across the panel. But I also would like to hear from the audience. So I'm going to just, I would need to plea for literally maybe 30 seconds sort of feedback or response from each of the panelists, just to be able to give opportunities to the audience if they're interested in asking questions. So I'm going to start with Kahange. Sure I pronounced it again correctly. How do you see Namibia's energy landscape to change going forward? Okay? Are there plans being made to expand beyond upstream? Because it's a lot of conversation around upstream. So downstream, there's got to be plans for that. Is that in the pipeline? You know, so it'll be great to hear from all of you. So I'll start with Kahange.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very good question, Bimbola, again there. Let me start by giving some context. First, you indicated issues regarding if there were collaborations between the neighbors, are there projects there covering neighboring countries, etc. I want to first speak there, and I come quickly to your last question. Yes, especially in the electricity sector, there has been quite a lot of planning and also project implementation, project planning, project rollout, etc., etc. For example, we have, as Namibia, we have been in collaboration with our Angolan brothers to build a Baines power plant on the Kunene River, on the lower Kunene River. And that project has reached tremendous progress that require government to start taking decisions on that. Yes, construction has not yet come, but quite a lot of agreements are in place, and I believe that we will move forward. It was also mentioned here, Bimbola, to say that Namibia is a part of the Southern African Power Pool. We do the planning for the region through the power pool. And the plannings that we do, because we are an operating member of SAP, the plannings that we have been doing over the years and continue it into the future have given birth to projects such as ANNA, that is a project between Angola and Namibia, a big transmission 400 kV line. It has given birth to another big and huge project covering 4 countries, which we call Sisabona. It's a line running from Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, hence the name Sisabona. Those letters are the first 2 letters of each of these 2 countries. Today, we are busy rolling out, already in construction, building a line on our southern side, which is a 400 kV line from our Obib substation into South Africa, into a place called Oranjemond on the other side of the border. That there is very, very good progress already on the construction side of that project. So these are some of the things that are happening on the ground, without speaking on the projects that are inside the country. Now, the future landscape of the power supply in Namibia. The way I see it, yes, a lot of things are going to happen and already happening actually. There has been this issue now of renewables. 10 years ago, we were not speaking of renewables here. You mentioned that in Namibia, with all this ample opportunity of irradiation, that there is 80 megawatts. It is not true. We have got over 150 already in operation that is running as we are speaking here right now. We have got a lot of other projects lined up. Some are at a tender stage, some are closing, and various other thermal projects on renewable side, such as our biomass power project. And earlier, you asked me about the future of the fossils, which I did not mention to you that we are commissioning a 50 megawatt new HFO plant at Wolfish Bay in June, July this year. If Namibia goes to commission a 50 megawatt HFO, what does it tell the future of hydrocarbons in Namibia, given the fact that we are in the transitional period? We believe that also, it hasn't been mentioned quite a lot this morning and this afternoon here, the issue of the green hydrogen that Namibia is looking into. I believe that with the discovery of the oil and gas, green hydrogen that is on the cards, that would tremendously shape the landscape of the future of power supply, both in Namibia and also in the region. So this morning, I was also looking, I was listening quite carefully, especially when we had the local content, panel in front here, when I was thinking that, this local content policy that government is seriously looking into, it should have happened much earlier. We as Nampower, without the local content policy in the country, we have been just having this desire to make some things in our project, some local content provisions. And of course we were doing without any research, without any planning. It's just that people must come on board. And we burn our fingers in many of these things. I have looked at the local content policy. I just wanted, Maggie Shino is not perhaps in the room, that I have instructed already my people to look into it, to be able to give feedback or comments to them, or maybe even a dedication session with Nampower, so that they learn and they include in the new local content coming up, so that our new policy for the country should not repeat some of the mistakes that we have done. So all these things will speak now in totality to the future landscape of energy, both in terms of oil and gas, green hydrogen, electricity, renewables, everything going into the future. So the landscape is big. Investors are welcome. Project developers are welcome. And we are here to answer to them and explain the policies that are on the ground. Thank you.
Fantastic summary, Kahange. Thank you so, so much for that. Manfred, what are your views on seeing the Namibia's energy landscape? If there's anything you'd like to add to what Kahange has said. He said a lot.
Yeah, so being mindful of time and the fact that being here for more than 40 minutes, it looks like we are now of one mind. So I will pass the question.
Okay.
It's nothing that I will add that will be more helpful than what he said.
Excellent. John?
Just 3 quick points, and I'll try to summarize them in 1 minute. Maximum utilization of all our natural resources, a well-integrated region, meaning Namibia well-connected, as the MD of Nampower already said, a well-integrated transmission network of our neighbors, because that will foster regional trade in terms of electricity. And lastly is something that is also that we should never forget, and it's something that all our policies and also government tools underscore. All what we do, we need to focus on the maximum benefit for the citizens of Namibia. So, and that's why the local content policy is always high on the agenda and always attracts attention. So the aim, all what we do here should be for the benefit of the citizens of Namibia. That should be underscore all our thinking, all our planning is, it should benefit the whole Namibia. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Robert?
Briefly, whatever the outcome of the energy transition, we are hoping for an optimal energy mix with some level of baseload, and that is going to reduce our reliance on imports and transition this nation into an energy export supplier into the region. That's what we are hoping for. And whether fossil fuel and the potential of hydrocarbons, all what we are looking at, all the investors, please keep in mind, 50% of Namibians does not necessarily enjoy access to electricity. It's reality, it remains in our face. And also, in addition to that, whatever the energy sources that are going to transition this country going forward, please contribute to affordability of electricity. Then collectively, it's a win-win for investors as well as Namibia as a nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. And last but not the least, Mutundeni.
So I think very shortly, Bimbola, from our perspective, we locally, of course, with all the projects on the pipeline that the panelists have been talking about, we envision at least a reduction of this energy poverty. So we see in the medium term a balanced energy mix that should enable other industries such as mining and also allowing us to properly diversify from and prevent us from just depending on the hydrocarbons. So we also see regionally more integration and more value addition in terms of refineries in collaboration and other value additions such as LNG and so on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to find out if there's anyone in the audience or a couple of people that have questions. Anyone have questions for the panelists? Yes, please, just, yeah, go ahead. Sorry, there's no microphone. Oh, there's a mic. There you go. Thanks. Yeah.
My question is about the pros and cons of bringing gas onshore to generate power versus generating the power offshore and then running the line to shore.
I can take that.
Sure, go for it.
I mean, without disclosing what we are currently seized with, so we have done extensive work on comparison between pipeline delivering gas to shore and putting a power plant onshore and doing generation offshore using submarine cable and then with all the associated reactive power challenges. Our analysis says that because of the distances that we're talking about and the amount of power that might be required to make an impact to what they need, it's a challenge. So it tipped possibly in favor of delivering gas. And then you have the added advantage is if you size the pipeline for the future, it could also be used to accommodate all these other huge resources that will come about soon.
Thank you, Manfred. Just one more question, and that's it for the day. Well, in the absence of none, I'll just round it up by saying the future belongs to Namibia and the Namibian people. And of course, Namibia is open to welcoming, investors and other people that are willing to help Namibia to grow. So I'd like to give a very, very huge thank you to the panelists. I have learned a lot from you within just this 1 hour. Thank you so much for gracing the stage with me. And thank you, most importantly, to the audience for taking time to listen to what the panelists have to say today. And of course, you can grab them and ask them more questions if you have any. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your time at the conference. Thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Fantastic. There'll be a quick photo opportunity, if I'm not mistaken. We'll just find the photographers. However, thank you very much to our panelists and Bimbola for moderating that particular session. Incredibly well done. And of course, highlighting the focus on opportunities that do exist in Namibia.
We're not going to take much of your time. We know that you are looking forward to this evening's gala dinner starting at 19:30. We are about to release you. It's been an absolute pleasure hosting you today. For those delegates who need transport, you should please make your way to the shuttles immediately. They've been waiting for you. Thank you very much for your time and participation. See you later this evening and tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. sharp. Goodbye.